Hi, everyone, and thank you for taking the time to join us today. My name is Mark Cohen. I am the Partnership Manager here at TradeGecko, and I will be the moderator on today's webinar, Future Ready, Protect, Manage, and Grow Your E-Commerce Store. So a few housekeeping items I'd like to address before we begin. Today's webinar should take us approximately 30 minutes, leaving us lots of time to answer all your burning questions at the end. We will be recording this webinar as well, and we'll share the recording and the presentation afterwards. Also, if you do have any questions, please input them in the chat box on the right-hand side, where we'll be able to answer them at the end of the session. So starting out here, joining me on today's webinar, we have Mike Potter, CEO at Rewind. Mike is a serial entrepreneur and currently the co-founder and CEO of Rewind, a backup solution for Shopify, eCommerce, and QuickBooks Online. His second full-time position is Hockey Dad. Thanks for coming out, Mike.
Thanks for having me, Mark.
Also on today's webinar, we have Bruce Warren, who is the Vice President, Global Marketing here at TradeGecko. Bruce is a technology executive with 20+ years of international experience in marketing, product management, business development, and corporate planning, focused on connecting business owners and partner advisors with the right solution for their inventory and order management needs. Thanks for being here, Bruce.
Great to be here.
So in terms of today's agenda, we'll begin with Mike providing context into the importance and process for securing your data, after which Bruce will dive into the operational elements of refining your back-end workflows, looking at new ways to getting your product out into market, along with some consideration points to taking your business to the next level. Now, on to you, Mike.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much for taking the time out of your busy day to listen to this. Hopefully, you get some tips and tricks on how to improve your online store and protect it. I first started Rewind about 2.5 years ago with my business partner James. And it came from a need that I had. I was fortunate enough a long time ago to work at Adobe. I was a technical evangelist, and I would go and often present in front of hundreds of people. And one day I remember I was in Chicago presenting, and my boss was there for the first time. I went to advance my slides, and my computer froze. Nothing was happening. And so I quickly rebooted my computer in front of all these people, and that little icon that you see on your screen with the folder with the question mark on top of it, that's what came up when my computer booted. I had lost everything on that machine. There was no way to recover it. I tried to go to the Apple store and get them to see what they could find, but the hard drive was dead, and there was nothing they could do. And so I vowed from that day forward to really never, try and never lose any data again. At home, I'm a big backup fanatic. I back up to my local hard drive and then mirror that hard drive into the cloud and make sure that that everything's protected, so I'm not losing, my kids' pictures or videos or anything like that. And that's really sort of how Rewind started. We were working together, and here in Ottawa, you couldn't help but notice how popular Shopify was. And so I suggested to James, I said, why don't we build a backup solution for Shopify? And, I think many store owners don't really realize that they need a backup solution. If you've ever seen this screen that you can see in the top left-hand corner, it says deleted products cannot be recovered. Do you still want to continue? That's the truth. If something happens to your products or your store or anything like that, and you click that delete button, they really can't be recovered. Shopify has a backup, but the backup that they've got is for disaster recovery. It is to help Shopify in the event that Shopify servers get hit by a meteorite or some disaster happens to them, they can recover their entire system back to a certain point in time. But they won't go into that backup to recover individual store owner data. That's not something that they'll do for their smallest customers and their, any entrepreneur that's just starting, nor is it something that they'll do for their largest Shopify Plus customers. So that screen where you see, deleted products cannot be recovered, you still want to continue. When you hit delete there, it really does mean delete. And so what we were thinking was, wouldn't it be nice if there was a way to magically undo any unwanted changes that you made in your store? If somebody came in and accidentally deleted some products, or an app that you integrated in made some changes that you didn't want, wouldn't it be great if there was a way to just sort of, rewind your store, if you will, and undo those changes that that happened? And that was how Rewind started. And so we looked up online. We looked up in the help documentation. There was a lot of information around how to back up and duplicate your store. And it was at the time at least, I think it was a 15-step process or something like that. I think it's about the same right now. And we thought, small business owners are not going to do that. They're not going to export their data. They're not going to, save their images. They're not going to know how to do all of these things. And they're not going to take the time to make sure they're doing it on a regular basis. And so we'll just step in, we'll automate that, we'll simplify it, and make it so that anybody can use it. And that was what we did with Rewind. So it's a completely automated solution. There's no setup. You can't configure when it's backing up or what it's backing up or where it's backing it up to. There are no options to set. You simply install it and then hopefully never have to think about it again. And if the time comes where something happens to your online store, you can come in and rewind your products either one by one, or rewind your entire store back to the way it was before the disaster happened. We've been doing this for about 3 years now, and we've seen a lot of use cases around why people would need a backup. And so one of the ones that that I often laugh about, if you're editing or modifying your theme code, you really do want to have a backup before you start doing that, especially if you're not technical. But probably the best story that I ever heard was a customer of ours who had his cat jump on his keyboard while he was making some changes and totally messed up his store. So if you're editing your code and you own a cat, or maybe if you don't own a cat, you'll definitely want to make sure that you've got your store backed up before you're making those changes. If you're installing third-party apps, we'll talk about this in a second, and give you some tips on how to make sure that those apps are trustworthy before you install them. But if you're installing any third-party apps, you probably want to back up before granting any permissions to those apps. If you're giving access to other employees or freelancers to work on your store, you probably want to make a backup before you give somebody access to your store. A third-party freelancer that you hire, you may not know where they are. You may not know how they're protecting their password. They may make a mistake as well. It's just a good idea to have a backup before you're giving somebody access to your store to work on it. And then last one is, a human error. I mean, for the most part, Shopify stores are started and run by entrepreneurs that are very busy. They work all hours of the day. And we've seen many times where customers will email us and say, you know what, I accidentally made a mistake. I was working late. I accidentally deleted my blog, and I know I shouldn't have, but I just made a mistake. It was late. I had been working all night, and I accidentally deleted it. Or I had a customer just email me this morning and said they deleted 7 collections by accident. It happens. Human error happens. It's going to happen. If you've been lucky enough so far to run your store without making some disaster and making some changes that you wish you'd undo, then you've been lucky. But it really is a matter of time before that happens to everybody. In terms of third-party applications, I'd say this is one of the more common use cases that we see. And if you're on Shopify and installing applications, you've probably seen a screen like this when you go to install an app from their app store. If you see that it's requesting permission to manage products, as you can see here, it's asking to manage products, manage orders, manage customers, manage marketing, manage your online store, manage other data. Manage really means modify, and if it can modify, it means it can either change something or it can delete it. And we've seen both. In terms of data disasters, we've seen apps that have been integrated that have deleted entire products, every product from an online store, for instance, because there was a bug in the integration. And so before you install these applications, you really want to make sure that the permissions that they're asking for make sense. You really want to make sure that the app itself is trustworthy. So simple things like how many reviews does it have? Does the application have a phone number? Does the company that built the application have a phone number listed? Can you call them? When you do call them, Are you talking to a human being, or is it just a recording? Little things like that, going to their website and checking what the copyright date is on the bottom of their site. If it says, copyright 2016 and they haven't updated it in 2 years, well, might not be the most trustworthy app to install if they're not, updating and working on it consistently. And so you really do need to be careful before you're installing those applications. And especially if they're requesting access to manage or modify any of your store, really make sure that you've got a good backup before doing anything like that. This is a quote from one of our customers, and Rewind really is like insurance, like she says. It really is just common sense, though, to be protecting all the hours of work that you've put into your store, right? And so we really do believe that every system that people have should be backed up, whether that's your local computer where, all of your product images are stored, or whether it's your online accounting system or your accounting system or anything like that, your customer list, etc. But it does extend all the way into the SaaS applications that you use online. And so Rewind does protect Shopify. It does protect your BigCommerce store. It does protect your, went forward one too many slides, I think. But we do protect all your BigCommerce store, your Shopify data, your QuickBooks online data. We're backing up, thousands of Shopify stores, including some of Shopify's largest Shopify Plus clients. So if you're on Plus, we can definitely handle your volume. And like I said, I think it's just a real good idea to make sure that you're protecting your online business, and we think Rewind is the best way to do that. So happy to answer any questions at the end of the presentation. And now I think I'll hand it over to Bruce.
Thanks, Mike. That was a really sad cat story you told there. I hadn't heard that one, so that's a sad cat story. I've got a happier cat story. I used to have a cat years ago. His name was Holmes, and he got into a fight with a raccoon one night, and he lived to tell the tale. He lived to be 19 years old, and later on, my roommate got a Great Dane, and the Great Dane was afraid of the cat. So there you go. There's a happy cat story. So yeah, thanks for having me on the webinar today. I really enjoyed your presentation, Mike. I'm now going to talk a little bit about how to manage and grow your business in the cloud. So just to give you a quick background on TradeGecko. So TradeGecko was formed in 2012. The founders are actually from New Zealand, and they went to Singapore to start the business. And we've now grown to over 15,000 users. We're across 90 countries, so truly international. And we're the preferred inventory and order management software by Shopify Plus. And today I want to talk to you about 3 topics to help grow your business. One is around streamlining your business processes. Secondly, I want to talk about selling more. And thirdly, I want to talk about how to skyrocket your business performance. Okay, so first going to talk about streamlining. So really these days, businesses face a lot of operational challenges as they look to scale. So oftentimes they're stuck on these old systems and no paper trail, and it can be a nightmare to try to find what you're looking for. Communication between teams and systems is difficult, particularly when you're using tools like Excel to try to communicate, and document control and all those types of things. And then for merchants, there's always that issue of either overselling or underselling. If you oversell, you're going to really annoy customers, whether they're consumers or wholesale customers. And if you undersell, you're obviously leaving money on the table. And auditing is really challenging as well, because it's done at the end of the year, and it can be painfully difficult. So really, it's about three things. One is 3 trends that we're seeing. One is about managing your business on the go. So if you're out selling, you're at a trade show and you've got a salesperson out there, they want to be able to sell on the go and avoid the kind of historical process of phoning in or writing. You've even heard people writing orders down on paper and then getting back to the office and entering it on an Excel spreadsheet. And I mentioned on the last slide, just really managing your stock and avoiding overselling, because that's a real killer for the business. And really managing the business as you look to sell wholesale. So typically, our customers will start off with a direct-to-consumer model, typically one channel. They'll be on Shopify or they'll be on Amazon. And then as they look to expand, either to access different markets within their own country or to expand in different countries, they'll look to set up a wholesale business, and that brings a lot of new challenges with it in terms of managing your inventory. So really what we're about at TradeGecko is becoming that single source of truth to manage your entire back-end operations. So that's everything from your e-commerce and POS. So we talked about Shopify, WooCommerce, Amazon, Magento, making sure that you purchase the right amount of stock. And then from a sales perspective, being able to accept B2B orders online. So from your wholesalers, I mentioned when your sales reps are out in the field, being able to have a mobile app that you can place orders on and being able to sell on mobile when you're at trade shows. And then also it's really about completing that loop and collecting payments. So a lot of our merchants historically have used the horrible process, and I didn't even know they still existed, but fax machines, faxing orders or even emailing orders out and having to chase those people by phone is painful, and that's costing money from really hurting your cash conversion cycles. And we also kind of at the back end and from an end-to-end perspective, we integrate with 3PLs and shipping providers like Fulfilled by Amazon, ShipStation, StarShipIt, and importantly integrate with online accounting systems like Xero and QuickBooks Online. So really that end-to-end process for your business. So secondly, I want to talk a little bit about selling more. So one of the great features of beginning to focus and immerse yourself within the cloud is that process around creating more opportunity and being able to, in effect, kind of control your growth. And if a high volume of sales currently occurs through distributors or wholesalers, really diversifying those sales channels and your capabilities is key as you expand. And there's a growing trend right now, an expansion of retailers looking to move or considering going to wholesale, because it's kind of a natural progression. Typically, we see it as companies look to enter new markets. So, for example, you're a Canadian or a U.S. company and you want to go to the U.K. And the key elements there you need to consider include your pricing strategy, you're looking at making the ordering, billing, and shipping a seamless process, along with an online experience to match. So what we really find in a trend that's really accelerating right now is that we're all consumers and we all have mobile phones, and we're used to that app experience, that great device experience in our consumer lives. When we go over to the business side and business to business interactions, it's like going back in a time machine, and it's not a pleasant experience when you try to interact with companies on a B2B basis. So we hear of, we got a customer in Singapore that I was talking with before they had TradeGecko. They were walking around the warehouse doing manual counts, writing them down on a clipboard, and then phoning it in and putting it on an Excel spreadsheet, like really archaic processes. And then lastly, you really want to look to choose the right marketplaces for your brand, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. So really taking the manual out of the day-to-day and centralizing your entire back-end workflow process so you can focus on selling across e-commerce and sales channels that make sense for your brand. That really has to be the key. And a lot of systems will claim to have inventory controls and proper connectors in place. That's not always the case. Sometimes it's marketing. And we ensure to be very clear around the workflow supported by each of our native integrations, which include Shopify, WooCommerce, Magento, and Amazon, just to name a few. And as you further expand your selling options through our third-party ecosystem, we have a number of third-party integrations. And one of our goals as you look to expand is to really ensure that we connect to the best-in-class marketplaces globally. And this set continues to expand every week. And these are a few of the additional connectors that we can support if you currently use or are considering to leverage in the future. And we're adding to that through partners. So really, it all comes down to having the ability to really understand your key metrics and make the right buying decisions and having that information wherever you are. And that's one of the main challenges that we see a lot of customers coming to TradeGecko, is that they want better intelligence. They want to see which of their products are selling the best by each sales channel, and understand which of their wholesale buyers are selling the most, and understand those order volumes so they can focus on where they're having the most bang for the buck. Now I just want to talk about the last section, which is how to really skyrocket your business. So the way you ship really evolves as you grow. So selecting how you go about your shipping should evolve with you and make the right decision. Making the right decision here is really critical about taking your business operations to the next level. So you want to look at software solutions like ShipStation, EasyShip, or ShipIt based on your global operations for in-house. Or if you're looking for 3PLs globally, we'd be more than happy to recommend specific vendors based on your region. You can reach out to myself or Mark afterwards for more information. The next one I want to talk about is navigating the world of EDI. So EDI's adaptability really helps to streamline and enhance your business relations with trading partners. So having standardized e-documents really reduces costs, ensures the traceability, and minimizes errors. And we've seen in a lot of cases as much as 30 to 40%, along with improving your operational response times. And at TradeGecko, we have numerous partners to help support your EDI needs based on your key considerations. And definitely drop me a line if you'd like to learn more. All right, so Rewind and TradeGecko are really here to help you protect, better manage, and to scale your operations. And really being prepared and organized is vital, so you can spend your time focusing on what you care about with security that everything's being handled through us. So for us, it's really about allowing you to focus on why you started the company and why you're building the brand, and taking you away from some of those day-to-day headaches about managing inventory, managing sales orders, all with that confidence that your data is backed up securely in the cloud, and you can rewind it at any time that you need. So yeah, so I just want to talk about one more thing in closing before we get to some questions from the audience, is that we have a partner program at TradeGecko, and you can make money through our partner program. There's a 20% ongoing revenue share or a 200% one-time bounty for preferred customers. And now we're going to take some questions from the audience. So I'll turn it back over to Mark.
Okay, thanks, both Bruce and Mike there. That was fantastic. So I'm seeing some questions pull through. And let's see. Let's start with Mike here. First question: does performing a rewind affect the entire store? And will I lose all the work done if I'm just trying to rewind one part of my store?
Good question. So if you're rewinding, you have the ability to rewind back a single item or just a category of items without affecting anything else in your store. So, we have customers that want to undo a change that they've made to a single product, for instance. That's easily done. We have some customers that might want to rewind all their product images. This is often if they've run a image watermarking application, for instance, and messed up all of their product images. They might want to rewind all their product images, but not touch any of the other data on their store, right? I don't want to change my my prices or my descriptions or my titles. I just want the images rewound to the way they were, last Wednesday, let's say. And so it's a really flexible backup system. You can do that. And then obviously you've got the ability to say, okay, I need to rewind all of my orders, all of my products, all of my customers back to the way it was before the problem happened as well. So it's a very flexible system. And it's really designed to handle the majority of the cases that customers will come across in terms of why they would want to rewind data.
Okay. And now I've got a question here for Bruce. Who are the type of companies that TradeGecko is best suited for?
Yeah, really good question. So TradeGecko is really best suited to companies that carry inventory. So wholesalers, e-commerce brands or hybrids of the two. We have a lot of those types of customers. We focus on growing businesses that deal with multiple channels, as I talked about in the presentation. So you have a Shopify store, then you want to move into wholesale. You might have a physical retail store as well. And we focus on companies with finished goods. And Canada is actually one of our key markets, and we have an office right here in downtown Toronto.
That's great. Got another question here for Mike. Where is the Rewind backup stored, and is it GDPR compliant?
Cool, yeah. So GDPR is a new regulation that's coming into Europe. I believe it's May 25th that it comes into effect, which states that all the data for European customers needs to be stored and maintained in Europe. Currently, the data for Rewind backups is stored in the cloud in the United States, and we are working on becoming GDPR compliant by that May 25th deadline. So we'll have a European version of Rewind, if you will, up and running before the GDPR deadline. So all the data for European customers will stay in Europe, and all the data for US customers will stay in the US. And then eventually we're also hoping to get a Canadian data center running as well. And so we'll have the ability to have all your backups stored in Canada without the data ever crossing the border.
Wow, that's great news. And then it looks like we have one last question. This is for Bruce around integrations. What are some other integrations that TradeGecko supports?
Yeah, so TradeGecko, we support a number of commerce integrations, including QuickBooks Online, Xero for accounting, Shopify, including Shopify Plus, WooCommerce, Amazon, which also includes Fulfilled by Amazon, LOCAD, which is used for forecasting, and many others. And if there's one that you're looking for and it's not on the website, definitely drop me a line and I'll hassle my colleague Mark and say, when are we going to get this integration?
Fair enough there. Oh, man. And yeah, I guess with that, so thanks, Bruce. And looks like that is it for questions. I would like to extend a special thanks to both you, Bruce and Mike, for joining today's webinar. And I'd also like to thank all of you for tuning in. We hope today's webinar will help you to grow and scale your business in 2018. And if you're interested in learning more about TradeGecko or Rewind, please check out the websites where you can start a free trial, or feel free to contact Bruce and Mike directly. Thanks again, and we hope you will join us again soon.